man, did we have a wild year across Zoe's Lab 2 and 3 in 2022. Oh, this is gonna be so much freaking fun. You do not understand. This had to be one of the wildest years across Zoe's Lab 2 and 3. Especially for Zoe's Lab 2. How this turned into this in a matter of 2.5 months is absolutely insane. Holy frick! I'm not even joking, guys. That actually happened. And you'll know why later once we get to it. With all that being said, let's begin. The first party of the year was, of course, the New Year's party of 2022. It started on December 30th, 2021, and ended on January 6th, 2022. Like all other New Year's parties, only the roof was decorated. However, this time, for the first time in many years, it was actually without the Christmas party. For the first time since 2019, it was without the Christmas party. But what was the major difference? Well, there were actually a few. For one, it was at nighttime, this also being the first New Year's party at nighttime without the Christmas party alongside it. Because normally, for it to be nighttime at a New Year's party, it's normally always still at the Christmas party. But this was right after it ended. Another difference was that there was snow on the roof, which was also really cool. Later on January 1st, another update was added, including a ton of torches to light up the roof, and an entirely different dance floor. I forgot to mention before that the party colors consisted of dark gray, because, well, why not? But I guess it made sense later on as to why we did choose it. Oh, you'll know later. Anyway, there was not just a New Year's party in ZL2. No. There was a New Year's party in ZOE'S Lab 3 as well. Yes, that's right. Finally, for the first time ever, we have ever had a New Year's party across both ZOE'S Lab 2 and 3. For that party, it started the day after New Year's on January 2nd, but here's the difference. It ended February 6th. Now, why was this? Simply put, we actually never updated ZL2 after the New Year's party of 2022, all the way up until its anniversary day on February 6th, which means for the next few events that we're going to be taking a look at will all be in ZL2. But don't worry, we will return to ZL3 very, very quickly, as the next two events are in ZL2, and then we'll be right back here to ZL3 for that next event. It's just because we didn't update anything after. But back to the point. The New Year's party of 2022 for ZL3, on the other hand, pretty much looked exactly like ZL2's. The difference was mainly the, the streamers up here were a bit different compared to ZL2's. Another difference was also that the beacons were updated as well. That was really cool. Outside of that, and there was also some cakes around here that weren't, just like, right here specifically. There were some cakes over here as well. Outside of that, it basically looked almost exactly the same as does the ZL2 one. And with that being said, that is it for this party. The next party to occur across both ZL2 or 3, which I addressed earlier, the next two are in only ZL2, because remember what I said earlier, we didn't update ZL3 again until its anniversary day. But the point is, this was the ZOE'S Lab 7-year anniversary party. It started on January 15th and ended on January 20th. Making this the shortest lab anniversary party of all time. This party was a remake of the End of Lab of Doom celebration from June 1st, 2017, as we could clearly see here, which we already took a look at that party in a previous Saturday Stories back in 2019 on July 20th. Go watch that if you haven't already, as that event will be discussed there. With that being said, Of course, as I addressed, this was a remake of that said party with an anniversary twist slash spin, where all of these old rooms would be decorated the way they were originally, but with anniversary cakes with candles all over the place to represent the fact that this was an anniversary party. However, when we got to the downstairs, on the other hand, that is where things took a complete turning point. The lab was completely dark downstairs, with the only thing lighting it up was the cakes with candles that we saw upstairs in that remake. And it was all because Master Evil Oinkers took the power source out of ZL2 and stole it for himself. This took a massive turn into what we'll be discussing later, because this started the power outage arc, aka an arc that consisted of the lab being dark for a long time. The only way we could see the lab during this party was via these candles that were part of the anniversary cakes. Not to mention, there was still snow all over the place. So, with that being known and in mind, that's how the downstairs looked. However, there's more to this than you may think. This later led to a later event that we will talk about later in this video that will later explain the result of the power outage. This day truly marked a turning point in ZL2. And this was insane. Of course, it was going to be a while until we got that power source back, so the next event, the Winter Party, followed a similar story, where the entirety of the Winter Party was also in the complete dark. However, that didn't stop us from what we were actually trying to do during this party. With, speaking of which, the Winter Party itself. It started on January 20th and was originally supposed to end on February 3rd. However, it ended a week later than intended on February 10th because we forgot to remove it, because we didn't go on to ZL2 at the time to remove it. So that was our fault. Anyway, the party itself, outside of what I just explained. During this party, there was still so much leftover snow left from the Christmas party of 2021 and the snowstorm that followed after it. So what we decided to do was use all of the leftover snow that covered the lab in during that party and use it for fun snow activities. And see, that's when the party was originally meant to happen from. Yeah, it ended 1 week later than intended, as I just addressed. That was the actual line. Back to the point. 3 winter activities were spread across the lab to help get rid of all the extra snow. These 3 were the following: a snowman building contest hosted by Snow Sheep, an ice sculpture building contest hosted by Icelina in the backyard, and lastly, a snow fort building contest hosted by Nobody in Snowland. However, before we could actually get to those said snow competitions respectively, we had to turn on a temporary power source to light up the lab so we could actually do these things and see the party a bit better. To do this, we had to find levers across the lab, 3 in total. Or I think it was 5 actually. The point is, oh yeah, they were difficult. After getting all the levers, we successfully were able to turn back on the power temporarily. And by doing that, we were actually able to see this party much better. And as we could see by the footage right here, yeah, that's when we were actually able to see this party properly. Continuing with the power outage storyline, we found a temporary light source for the next 2 events until, well, something insane happened later on. And did this party indeed get rid of all the extra snow we had during that party of the Christmas party 2021? Well, it sure did! Because when the Valentine's Day party of 2022 began, all the snow was successfully gone. But we'll get to this later, as next up, we need to go to ZL3 again. Yep, remember how I said we would be back at ZL3 at some point? Well, I wasn't joking. The ZOE'S Lab 3 5th anniversary party. Yes, finally, after over a month of no updates in ZOE'S Lab 3, we finally updated the world again. And just in time, because it was his 5th anniversary on February 6th. The party began on February 6th and was originally supposed to end on February 27th. It was supposed to be a 3-week party. However, it actually ended on March 31st by complete accident because we, once again, just like the New Year's party, did not update ZL3 again after this party was supposed to end. It later ended when the April Fool's Day party began on March 31st, which we will get to later in the video. Anyway, the party as follows. This party celebrated the 5-year anniversary of ZOE'S Lab 3 as the party suggests. And this party was positioned in the original ZOE'S Lab 3 colors from 5 years prior in the original ZOE'S Lab 3 world. Speaking of which, actually, during this party, did I actually mention to you guys, in this party, you could actually travel to the original ZOE'S Lab 3 via this portal right here. Doing it so would send you directly to the recreated ZOE'S Lab 3, the original, that I made inside the Creations world. That was amazing, as you could see the original ZL3 that took place 5 years prior and saw how it all began. That was honestly probably the most amazing feature that I added in this party, and it was honestly the best way to celebrate this world's 5-year anniversary and just ZL3's existence overall. Of course, the party obviously still consisted of course, fun anniversary decorations spread across the lab, as of course, the entire lab was decorated during this party. It made sense for its said anniversary. With that being said, outside of all of that, there wasn't really much else to say about this party outside of, it went on longer than it should have, and that was obviously by complete godforsaken accident, of course. Hopefully next year, 2023, it will only go for a week. I promise, hopefully. Seriously, I really do hope. But seriously, I truly did a great job. There were dance floors everywhere in this party. And you could tell here, even by Snowland, it was wild. Some elements of the ZOE'S Lab 3, some elements of some of the lights being turned off, but that was for anniversary party purposes, which, by the way, I forgot to mention. Thankfully, ZOE'S Lab 3 never was affected by the power outage. As well, it never lost power, as the power source never got taken. In fact, wait a minute. Now that I think about it, where is even that thing? I guess we'll never know. The point is, this was a really fun party, and without further ado, the next few events are actually going to once again be in ZOE'S Lab 2 only because we didn't update ZL3 for another month and a half. Let's go back to ZL3 for a few events again. And then I think from this point forward, we should be seeing ZL3 pretty much throughout the rest of this video. This will hopefully be the last time that ZL3 will not be shown for a decent amount of time in this video. Just what I mentioned. But something we're about to talk about later will explain why you're going to be seeing it a whole lot more. Jumping right back into ZL2, on the other hand, we are back with the Valentine's Day party of 2022. It started on February 10th and ended on the 17th. This is the first party since the anniversary party of ZOE'S Lab to actually end on the day it was supposed to. Unlike the last two events we just took a look at, which ended later than they were intended to. For the first time ever in ZOE'S Lab history, across either ZOE'S Lab 2 or 3 respectively, this was the first ever full-on Valentine's Day party that was not just a mini event that only contained maybe like 1 or 2 rooms. No. This was a full-on Valentine's Day party, spreading across almost the entire lab, which was absolutely insane. The temporary light source we used during the winter party was still here. And yes, as I addressed earlier, the snow indeed went away after the winter party, which proved that plan actually worked. But us getting the power source back, yeah, it was gonna be a while. So we had to settle with our temporary light source until we could potentially get it back later down the line. With that being said, the Valentine's Day party was still absolutely fantastic. It was the biggest Valentine's Day party we had ever done in the lab's history, and I hope to hopefully do something like this again, of course with actual lights this time, and not just these temporary lights, because we hope to not lose the power source again. I truly can agree this was one of the greatest Valentine's Day parties ever held, as it actually felt like an actual Valentine's Day party. So, with that being said, of course, all items and rooms were custom, brand new at the time, and it truly felt like one of the greatest Valentine's Day parties we had ever held in the lab's history. And it was, fun fact, the first Valentine's Day party to be held in either lab since 2020. That is a long time between the last one. Maybe that can also explain why it was so massive. With that being said, that is it for this party. And now here's where I say things get even more interesting regarding the power outage. Because now, this is where the power outage actually gets serious. Immediately after the Valentine's Day party 2022 ended on February 17th, not only did I cover all of Evil Sheet Leader's base in snow, but something even bigger happened. All of the temporary lights that we used to light up the winter party and Valentine's Day party, respectively, in those 2 events, were completely destroyed by Master Evil Oinkers. Not to mention, it got even darker in the lab, to the point where we even had an even harder time seeing the lab itself. And this later caused something massive. Around the lab, there were Master Evil Oinker's banners pretty much everywhere. And what originally was planned, known as the ZOE'S free 5th anniversary celebration, at least the ZL2 version, later ended up actually being cancelled entirely during this entire process. Not to mention, Evil Sheet Leader and that Evil Cluck banners alongside Master Evil Oinker's banners. This was a huge turning point, as it was time to get serious. A new event now takes its place, and even the special labs got affected by this, to the point where we needed to cancel that party, the ZL for 5th anniversary party for ZL2, immediately. And we needed to get serious. What we are about to tie into was one of the biggest ZL2 events, and probably the biggest lab event of all time. As, starting when the power outage started, rooms of the lab started getting taken over by Master Evil Oinkers and other said villains, as we were about to go into a huge war. The original name being the ZOE'S Lab 2 versus Evil Sheet Leader, Evil Cluck, and Master Evil Oinker's Mega Lab War, which was later changed to Operation Villain, later caused the lab to go dark on the outside. And the power outage itself got even worse, to the point where we could almost not even see the lab half the time. And yes, there's proof. Even the outside got affected. We weren't messing around anymore. It was time to get serious. We later learned more about this upcoming war by finding statues of Evil Sheet Leader, Evil Cluck, and Master Evil Oinkers officially telling us their plan to eventually take over ZOE'S Lab 2 as a whole. This was dark. And now having them try to stop me and Cool Cat 33 and eventually take over our world in the process. This was getting to be the most serious lab event of all time. And it all led up. February 24th hits, and the unthinkable happened. It was time for Operation Villains. One of the biggest operation events in ZOE'S Lab history, and not to mention the biggest ZOE'S Lab 2 event of probably all time, as this caused a major turn in how the rest of the year would play out. And we'll talk about that in a minute, as this event had a huge effect on how ZL2 would play out for the rest of the year. During this party, it started on February 24th and ended on March 24th. In a completely different turn in events. During this operation, Evil Sheet Leader, Evil Cook, and Master Evil Oinkers all had a plan to work together to take over the entirety of ZOE'S Lab 2. There were 4 phases throughout this event, one for each villain, and one where we take over and hopefully regain the power source. For instance, Master Evil Oinkers covered the lab in the banners related to the 3 villains that were going to take over at one point, as we could see here. And it wasn't a joke, as even the pipe to the special labs were gone. That's how serious they were of taking over the lab. Yep, Phase 1 on February 24th was them placing their banners all over the place. And not to mention, this was still without power. Even in the lab basement there were banners, which proves they weren't messing around. It was so insane that even the sheep generator was disconnected. And not to mention that, even the storage room was taken over by Master Evil Oinkers. This truly started the lab villain takeover. But this was just Phase 1. How did the other phases go down? Oh yeah, not to mention, Master Evil Oinkers moved into Evil Sheet Leader's old base in the process. But back to what we were talking about. At the end of each week, we would have to go up said villain's robot, the one villain that took over for the week. We would have to go up against their robot and ultimately destroy it in the process. And we sure did destroy them all in the process. Following the Master Evil Oinkers battle on March 2nd and following week 1 of the event, it was time for Evil Sheet Leader to take over. And his plan was covering the entirety of ZOE'S Lab 2 in lava. And it shows. This was truly turning into their lab, as we could tell by the lava everywhere. From what we can know, the lava was secretly crafting what would be known as their lab when they would eventually win, if they did. If they were to win this thing later on. And my God, it looked insane. They truly, Evil Sheet Leader truly did absolute chaos to the entirety of ZOE'S Lab 2. And let's just say it only got worse from here. Because the week 2 battle against Evil Sheet Leader's robot and just him himself also centered around lava. It was basically the floor is lava challenge. And you could bet it was difficult as frick. The entirety of the outside was covered in lava. And it took forever for me to blow him up. I had to build a bridge to get over him, without the lava burning it all, of course. I was thankfully able to put out all the lava with water, or at least most of it, and eventually blow up the robot in the process, concluding week 2. Sadly, weeks 3 and 4 never actually ended up happening. Instead, we got the St. Patrick's Day party of 2022. It started on March 17th and ended on April 7th. It was only supposed to go for 1 week ending on the 24th, but it actually stayed longer than expected. It was the first St. Patrick's Day party to occur in either lab since 2019, so that was nice to see again. Basically, all of the rooms outside of the actual ZOE'S Lab 2 itself, mainly all the ones seen outside of the actual lab building itself, such as the cruise ship, my house, the balcony, and basically anywhere that isn't the lab building itself, was all decorated for St. Patrick's Day in a green theme, as we could see here. That was really, really cool. It was nice to finally see areas that normally would never get decorated for an event like this actually get decorated in the process. And that was super awesome. This party was amazing. While I don't think there were any free items during this party, it was nice to finally have a St. Patrick's Day party here after 3 long years. And yes, even my house was decorated for this party. That was insanely nuts. And that was so cool. And it shows, because the entirety of my house was decorated as well. Again, no free items, but again, it was nice to finally see a St. Patrick's Day party after 3 years. That was really awesome at the time. And with that being said, this St. Patrick's Day party, well, it wasn't the biggest. It was still one of the cooler ones, as it probably had the most green out of any St. Patrick's Day party we had ever done in the lab's history. It probably had the most green tied into it, and not to mention a rainbow too. So that was really cool. This party only occurred in ZOE'S Lab 2, however. Speaking of which, if you're wondering how Operation Villains ended, since I never actually told you, here's how that went down. Oh, this was decorated too for St. Patrick's Day, I see. Right. Oh, and even Emperor's house, I just realized. Yeah, even that was decorated. Back to the point, though. Dang, this looks so cool. Unfortunately, the event took a massive turn. As in, turns of events caused us to lose Operation Villains. And in that case, ZOE'S Lab 2 as a whole. That's right. Master Evil Oinkers, Evil Sheet Leader, and Evil Cluck actually won and took over the entirety of ZOE'S Lab 2. This was the first ever time in ZOE'S Lab history that we had ever lost an operation event. And it had to be the most important one, of course! Yes, the one where they were attempting to actually take over, and they actually succeeded in the process. The entirety, and I mean the literal entirety of ZOE'S Lab 2 was entirely taken over by the 3 villains. This was one of the biggest things to happen across ZOE'S Lab history, and you want to know how it all happened? Because we left the lab for a week. During the most important operation event, we just left the lab for a week after St. Patrick's Day and came back to ultimate defeat. We lost. And that is what we got for doing that. It would be a few months until we figured out a plan to eventually get ZL2 back in our hands. For now, without ZL2 in our control and taken over by Evil Cluck, Master Evil Oinkers, and Evil Ship Leader, there was only one other place we still had left to still do stuff in. As you are noticing, ZOE'S Lab 3 was not affected at all, as it never was lost power to begin with. And keep in mind, all of this started just because the redstone torch was stolen. That is something to note. With that being said, for the next few months of events, from April all the way to June, it all took place in ZOE'S Lab 3. Starting with the April Fool's Party 2022. Dang, what a turn of events! And let's hope this never happens again. Just to be clear, this entire takeover started on March 24th. And I'll tell you its end date later, as it actually relates to another event we're going to talk about later. Just know, it started the day Operation Villains ended. We call this the Villain Takeover. And it truly shows. Now that ZL2 was taken over, all events from March 31st all the way to sometime in June were all in ZOE'S Lab 3, kicking it off with the April Fool's Day party of 2022. It started on March 31st and ended on April 7th. This party, as the name suggests, is just another traditional April Fool's Day party. Of course, all dimensions from, of course, you guessed it, ZOE'S Lab 2 were intact during this party. Literally, every single dimension was intact during this party from ZOE'S Lab 2, as that was our only access way into ZL2 at the time during the Villain Takeover. We were only able to access via the dimensions. And that was it. We literally could not do anything else in the ZL2 world outside of accessing the free April Fool's Day dimensions as in tradition. With that being said, outside of the dimensions itself, what about the actual party? The party mainly consisted of a ton of funny April Fool's Day jokes, as we are known for in each April Fool's Day party. Of course, some of these items given out actually had fun challenges regarding them. In fact, to get one of the items in this party, a little fun fact, one of the items actually required you to buy an anvil from the anvil shop during this party. Another item in this party required you to go through a maze during this party to be able to get a set item. And it wasn't easy. Oh no, it was hard. To the point where you actually have to look deep. The point is, this party had a lot of fun challenges implemented into it, as we could clearly see here. And one of the rooms were actually based off of a room from the original Club Penguin. So that was really cool. That's what this room was based off of. That room, to be exact, in Snowland. So that was a nice touch. The point is, this was a really fun April Fool's Day party. So every single item in this party required a challenge. And that was actually really cool at the time. With that being said, it was the first ever April Fool's Day party in ZOE'S Lab 3. And just to not be in ZL2. Fun fact, it was the first April Fool's Day party since 2020 to occur in either lab. So that was a nice little touch. Outside of that, there is nothing else to say about this party outside of the fact that it was really cool. With that being said, that is it for this party. Let's move on to the next event. The next party to occur in ZOE'S Lab 3 in 2022 was the Easter/Earth Day party of 2022. It started on April 14th and ended on the 28th. As the party suggests, and the name suggests, the lab was decorated in both Easter and Earth Day decorations respectively, with respective scavenger hunts to go on, and many awesome items related to each holiday to collect. Of course, there were multiple rooms dedicated to each holiday, as the party suggests. It was really, really fun. And there was even a tree maze for Earth Day to find one of the items, similarly to the April Fool's Day party. Of course, don't worry, there was obviously an Easter egg hunt at the same time. So don't worry, we did get an Easter egg hunt. And here's proof. Yep, this time, instead of the spawn eggs, it was actually dragon eggs, which was a nice change. I might do this again, actually, for the next Easter egg hunt. Which, by the way, Easter that year was on April 17th, and I have found out when Easter was for 2023. It is April 9th, so we're going to have to hold this party even earlier. So that's the point. Thankfully this time they won't be mixed together this time. Either way, this party was super cool as it revolved 2 scavenger hunts, and some of the eggs even being in space, which was also super cool. With that being said, this party was a success. It lasted 2 weeks, mainly because both of the holidays were a few days apart from each other. And if we only lasted it for 1 week, we wouldn't even make it to Earth Day. So we purposely had to have it 2 weeks. Also, since we didn't have ZOE'S Lab 2 during this time, I put all ZL3 updates on what day ZL2 updates would have been if we still had it, which was Thursdays, to kind of reminisce ZL2 as we didn't have it during this time. Of course, later on I changed them back to Sunday as tradition. But we'll get to that topic later. The point is, this party was so much fun, and I had a lot of fun making it. Let's move on to the next event. The next party to occur in ZOE'S Lab 3, which it being the last one for ZOE'S Lab 3 at the time, for it just being ZL3 standalone, was, well, the Throwback Party. It started on May 19th and ended on June 2nd. This party, as the name suggests, was a throwback party to previous events in ZOE'S Lab 2. Fun fact, no, sorry, that's ZL3 I'm meaning, sorry. I'm so used to saying ZL2, god dang it. But the point is, you get the idea here. Speaking of which, all past rooms were only related to ZL3. This is a party that was originally supposed to occur in ZOE'S Lab 2, but I think you can see where that went. And it would have only been related to ZL2, but again, you can clearly see where that went. Yeah, you can see where that went. It didn't happen. It only happened in ZL3. The outside of the lab was decorated like the See You Soon party from March 2019. The lab office was decorated like the design from the Minecraft Big Brother series 2nd anniversary, to be exact. And the flower shop was respectively decorated like the Operation Galaxy design from September 2021. And the previous design said September 2018. The roof was designed like the Fair 2019 from February 2019, respectively. The backyard was decorated like the 5-year anniversary party from February 2022, which we already talked about earlier in this video. After that, the lab hallway was decorated like the Christmas Party 2018 design from December 2018. After that, the library was designed like the Color Party 2019 from July 2019. The HQ, on the other hand, if we take a look, was from the Goodbye for Now phase of ZL3 from April 2019. And then, the next room being, well, the ZOE'S Lab 2 third anniversary, from September 2018. That was for Rose Crystal's room. The next room after would be, of course, the clothes shop, which would have been Lab of Doom 2019 from May 2019. The next one, of course, would be the Underground Party Room, which would be the Water Party of 2019 from June 2019. The next one after would be Snowland, which would be from the Rainbow Party 2020 from April 2020, which was also the party that welcomed back ZL3 updates after a while. The hallway, meeting room, and TV and game room, respectively, were from the Halloween Fair 2018 from October 2018, respectively. And lastly, but not least, the balcony was decorated like the Summer Party 2020/1.16 release party from June 2020. And that, my friends, was the end of the throwback party. Well, actually, outside of one room, actually, it was the UFO party that never actually happened, that would have happened in August of 2020. Outside of that, that was the end of the throwback party. There was nothing else to be said about this party. Let's move on to the next event. Dang, that was a lot to go over. Hold up, guys. We actually have one more ZL3 exclusive party before another big event happens. Back in 2020, we did a party to celebrate 1.16. So why not do a 1.19 party as well 2 years later? The 1.19 party. It started on June 8th and ended on June 9th. It only lasted for like 1 day. Technically, it would have started June 7th with the actual 1.19 release, so I guess that could count too. Either way, as the party name suggests, the entire lab was decorated as rooms dedicated to each part of the 1.19 update, as we could clearly see right here. Yep, each room was decorated with each 1.19 theme in mind. Of course, if you remember, that was about the Wild update. So that was really cool. It took each 1.19 feature and implemented it into each room of the lab, which was extremely cool. Oh, and yeah, there was one throwback party room still left. But outside of that, yeah, it was a really cool party. And yes, the HQ also got its permanent renovation during this party, except all the lights were now green. But you get the idea. The point is, this party was actually really, really cool. As again, it took every 1.19 feature and crammed it into one room. For example, the mud blocks, for example. So that was super cool. And yes, even another aspect, the deep dark, of course, was here as well in the cave, which was really cool. Snowland, you could tell, was about the mud blocks, which was also super cool. And of course, this was about the frogs, as you could tell because of the cage. This was actually one of the last parties that Goalie was on the balcony, I think. Or actually, sorry, I think it was later in the year that this happened. The point is, this party was awesome. And what we're about to see right here is what we're about to go into right now. Operation ZOE'S Lab 2022. And let me just remind you that every single one of these events were going on during the villain takeover of ZL2. I thought I'd just remind you real quick, because that's all true. As the name suggests, as usual, like the previous Operation ZOE'S Lab, we went back in time to previous time periods scattered around ZL2 and 3. And this time, the ZL3 time periods actually appeared during this one. Speaking of which, we actually finished this one, unlike the first one. So that was also really cool. It started on June 9th and ended on June 16th. Or, more importantly, June 17th, because the finale came out 1 day late. Because we did it 1 day late. The point is, this was the last ZOE'S Lab 3 exclusive event for probably forever. As, well, yeah. Let me explain to you what this was. Why did we do Operation ZOE'S Lab in June? Simply put, because of the villain takeover that occurred many months prior. The goal of this was, of course, saving each time period from corruption. And the real goal of this was to get ZOE'S Lab 2 back in our hands. Only if we won. And did we win in the process? Well, in order to even get it back to begin with, we needed to defeat Master Evil Oinkers, Evil Sheet Leader, and Evil Cluck in the process to even attempt of getting it back in our hands. And well, did we win? Blow up the entire battlefield with all of them there. I won't be defeated. You don't deserve this lab you call home. Forget about getting it back. This home of yours will forever belong to me. Really, Master Evil Winkers? Really? Do you really believe that's serious? You took it over for 3 months alongside this guy and him. Rose Crystal? You know what must be done. We both know what must be done. Are we ready to blow them up in 3, 2, 1? Shoot him down. And got him. We won! Let's go!
Dang, I missed that.
Let's freaking go! We won! Yes! The lab is ours again! Yes, we ultimately won, and ZL2 was back in our hands after 3 months of takeover. From this point forward, events now resumed occurring in both ZOE'S Lab 2 and 3 from this point forward. Speaking of which, by us winning, we finally got the redstone torch back, and power to the lab was finally restored. Of course, after we explored an alternate version of the takeover, which was March 24th, 2027. And my god, it was probably one of the greatest future time periods of all time. I cannot get over how awesome it feels. With that being said, and with all of this done, and with ZL2 back in our hands again, things could only go great from here. Celebrate while you can. Your victory won't last as long as you think. I'll assure that. Oh. They're gonna come back and get us at one point. But for now, guys, the lab is finally back to ours again. And he was right. It didn't last long. Because 3 days later, Operation Dome began in ZOE'S Lab 3. It started on June 19th and ended on July 3rd. As the name suggests, this was the first Operation Dome to occur in ZOE'S Lab 3 ever. But it was the first time Operation Dome had ever been seen across either lab since 2018. This was their payback for us winning Operation ZOE'S Lab and getting ZL2 back in our hands. So of course, they would block us in the dome. However, there were 2 villains that actually did this. For ZL3, it was Evil Sheet Leader. And for ZL2, which I'll get to when we get to that, I'll tell you that one. As the name suggests, the lab was covered by a dome, and the entire lab was also completely darkened in the process, after not being darkened originally during the power outage. And no, the power did not actually go out. It was only darkened because of the dome being over the lab. With that being said, on the other hand, the main goal of this party was to successfully blow up the dome across the entire lab. Yep, the main goal was to blow up the entire dome across the lab, and it was quite fun. Yes, we even had the ability to even burn it down at some points, as we could see here. So that is really cool. Of course, as the party went on, we kept blowing up even more domes. But the ending had to be my personal favorite, because the ending actually required us to literally go up to space and find ourselves an entirely new planet. That's right, an entirely new planet came out of all of this. On July 2nd, 2022, during the final day of Operation Dome in ZL3, we discovered the Evil Sheet Leader Kingdom planet. And that is where it all ended for Operation Dome ZO3. Of course, we had to explore the castle on the said planet, and of course, hunt Evil Sheet Leader down in the process, as we could see here. Of course, by finding Evil Sheet Leader, he gave us a message. In reality, something else happened. A very unexpected thing happened. Ultimately, in reality, when we found Evil Sheet Leader, yeah, it happened. Evil Sheep Leader disappeared and ran away. That's right. I'm not joking. Evil Sheep Leader ultimately ran away. We thankfully blew up the entire dome for ZOE'S 3, thanks to blowing up the machine that started the whole thing. But yes, while we did have to battle a polar bear leader down in the core of the planets, which was a little difficult, I'm not gonna lie, he blocked us from trying to get us to the machine. But ultimately, we defeated him, and thankfully, the lab was saved in the process, as we could clearly see by this footage right here. It was freaking insane. And if you thought that was crazy, yeah. This wasn't the only Operation Dome to occur across ZO3. No. There was one more. This was way too much fun to blow up, by the way. ZOE'S Lab 2 also had Operation Dome. It started on June 23rd and ended on July 7th. Like the ZO3 party, ZOE'S Lab 2 was covered in a dome. But unlike the ZO3 dome, where that was covered in coal, this was blocked in Skulk, which was actually able to be blown up. This party had a completely different set of missions compared to ZO3, whereas in that party we had to blow up the dome. In this party, though, we had to go through a set of challenges to be able to get through and destroy the dome ultimately. Yes, that's right. We had to go through a set of challenges throughout this party, which, by the way, all of them were completely original missions, just to be clear. And it was so much fun. The first one was on a 30-second time limit, where we had to shut down the dome via the Lab of Doom HQ computer. This would ultimately shut down the balcony dome, as we could clearly see here in the process. The point is, this party was so cool. It was completely different from the original Operation Dome in 2018, respectively. As another difference was that, for both, the phase 3 of Operation Dome 2018, where the entire dome covered ZL2 entirely and the whole entire lab got dark, well, that all started from the start of the party, where we actually had to get rid of the dome, this time via just various custom challenges. The point is, this party was a huge success. And after all of these years, just to be clear, we even found out what was under Evil Sheet Leader's Lab of Doom 2018 base. It was a base for Master Evil Linkers, who made the dome for ZL2, by the way. It was massive. And the fight consisted of mainly being in the dark, as you would expect, because of the dome taking over. This was a wild battle as well, which was really awesome. In the process, thankfully, like ZOE'S 3, the dome thankfully finally got out of ZL2, and we could finally take a break from Operation Events for a good bit. And to prove that I'm actually not joking about that, well, actually, this next event actually occurs during Operation Dome. But it was the 4th of July party of 2022. It was also the first ever 4th of July party in ZOE'S Lab 2. It started on June 30th and ended on July 7th. You bet the idea with this party. It was the first 4th of July party across either lab since 2019, with that being in ZL3. The point is, this party, as you would expect, had the entirety of the labs decorated in American colors for the American flag. So that was super freaking cool. And yeah, you can see I wasn't joking. Yes, everywhere was decorated for this party. And it was so cool. Every day leading up to July 4th, including the 4th itself, new custom items were being able to obtain during this party. And it was super awesome. It was so freaking cool. And I hope we can do this again in 2023. This was a super fun party to make. Even though we were trapped in a dome at the time, we thankfully made it out. And this party was awesome. And yeah, there's not much else to say about this party. Outside of it was a really fun party to make. And I hope we can do this again in 2023. That would be so awesome if we can do this again in 2023. Which, I hope to do that, by the way. And yes, also, for the first time ever, you could also go onto the roof of my house for the first time ever in this party to shoot off some fireworks. So that was really cool. Now, for the next mainline event, why did I say we were done with Operation Events for a while? Well, here's why. Because July was all about the fair. For ZL3, it started on July 17th and ended on the 31st. Of course, the reason this party was held was because it was a reward given to us after saving ZOE'S Lab 2, saving the timeline, and getting the 2 domes out of the labs respectively, all in June of 2022. So we deserved a nice reward for all of our hard work. With that being said, the fair was held in both ZOE'S Lab 3 and 2 respectively, which I'll get to the ZL2 one later. As the name suggests, there were many games spread around the lab, and they were the normal games that you would normally expect in the fair, but completely different, in completely new and unique ways that were never seen before. And this occurred also across ZOE'S Lab 2 as well. But it all mainly started here in ZL3. With that being said, this party also was the first ever night fair, by the way. I forgot to mention. This also occurred across both ZL2 and 3, the night portion. And, well, the night sky truly does show. And, well, yeah, we have wool colors. Of course, all of these games were done in completely different ways, as you could tell, as they were not the original games, as you would normally know them as. But what made this fair special, out of anything else, even more special than the ZL2 one, in fact, actually, was the fact that finally, after 3 years of waiting, we finally got the ZOE'S Lab 3 theme park. That was what made this fair truly special. And all games that were in the fair in week 1 were here and positioned in the way they were during the fair, just a little differently to match the theme park. Of course, all theme parks were related to each game, and theme were just related to each game in general. This was one of the greatest things to ever happen during the fair. Of course, this will not beat the ZL3. The ZL2 one will not beat the ZL3 one, I'll guarantee you. I will get to that one, don't worry. But the ZL3 one had to probably be the better fair out of the two. And how I know that is because we got an entire theme park out of it. And as you could tell, the theme park looked amazing. Of course, all of this is still here today, the theme park, as obviously it was a permanent room. With that being said, this was so awesome. And yeah, theme park is still here today. It is here to stay as usual, as you would expect. And that is it for the fair. For ZL3 at least, on the other hand. I do not know how we're going to top this next time in 2023. It is going to be stupid difficult. But I hope we can pull it off at any point. Now, of course, what did the ZL2 one have to offer? In the ZOE'S Lab 2 version of this party, it still had the same idea of it being a night fair, but obviously with different colors, being dark blue and black respectively to fit with the night fair theme that we had going. Oh right, forgot to tell you when ZL3's fair. It started on July 17th and ended on the 31st. For ZOE'S Lab 2, it started on July 21st and ended on August 4th. Sorry that I forgot to mention that earlier for ZL3. I just looked back at the footage and realized I never did tell you the date. Anyway, the cornhole game made its debut from LEGO's Island in this party, in the backyard. So that was one of the new games. Oh, and speaking of games actually, there was an entire room dedicated to the games. Oh, and fun fact, here in 2023, because fun fact, it's actually now 2023. Yeah, this is 10 days later. What you just saw prior to the ZL2 fair being talked about was all recorded December 31st. It's January 10th now, by the way. Anyway, this room actually still looks like this right now in ZL2 as of recording this very video. I should really clean that up. But anyway, back to the point. As you can tell, all of the fair games were here, but in the way of the ZL3 versions. Of course, a little bit different for ZL2, of course, so it wouldn't look exactly the same. Also, can we just talk about how stupid colorful this room is? I don't think I needed to do that, but I did anyway because it was awesome. Oh yeah, and proof that I'm actually not joking. Yeah, it's way later now. Fun fact, the colors of the streamers up there are actually the exact same colors as the 3rd anniversary party of ZOE'S Lab in 2018. So that was a nice little throwback. And as I just addressed, all of these remastered versions of the games come from the ZOE'S Lab 3 fair, but of course changed a little to make it more fitting for the ZL2 version of the fair, if that makes any sense. And the music game from LEGO's Island also made its first appearance here in ZOE'S Lab 2 as well. So that was nice to see. The fact is, there was also a much harder version of the target game, where basically you could use a crossbow, bow, or trident to hit any of the targets. And let me tell you, as you can see in the footage, it looked really difficult. And so difficult that I did make an update later on where there were less. But yeah, as you can tell here, it was so hard. And dang, we truly did a lot. But again, the fact remains, I still have yet, as of recording this video, to still clean up all of this from the fair down here. And change it back to the normal design. I know, I'm kind of lazy, which is very unfortunate. Anyway, outside of the game room, there was much more with this party, such as the following. Well, we did have a few rooms dedicated to the fair, like the underground party room, so that was really cool, after not seeing that in any previous fair since 2019, so that was nice to see again. Oh yeah, there were tons of rides in this party. One of them being an amethyst roller coaster, right over here as we can see. Yep, we literally had ourselves an amethyst roller coaster. And well, here's how it looked. Basically, the amethyst roller coaster took you up across the cobblestone tower, went above the railroad gate, and above the lab roof, all the way back down to the main outside area. The next roller coaster being the neon coaster, which would take you through the little wave pool sign, through the backyard, and lastly but not least, above the roof, which was really, really awesome. And lastly but not least, the final coaster in this party, which would be the copper coaster, if I'd like to call it that. It would take you, once again, through the cobblestone tower, across the balcony, which was all really cool, through the cobblestone tower again, and that was it. And of course, the Lazy River room was back from the Fair 2020, which was nice to see again. There was nothing new outside of the pirate flags, which were added months prior. Also like the Fair 2020, there were silver tickets hidden across the fair, but this time they were able to be used to reduce the amount of tickets that a prize would cost by 10. So that was also a nice little new addition. Outside of that, when the second week of the party began, there were a lot more decorations and rides around the fair. For example, there were now lit up palm trees starting July 28th to kick off week 2. And even a silver ticket was available to kick off the second week. Of course, with week 2 comes way more rides. It wasn't just decorations. No, there were more rides. But they were summer themed. Yep, that's right. And the reason they was mainly because this was taking place during the summer. At least where I am in the world. Don't go commenting. Trust me, I'm saying where I was in the world, where I'm in the world at the time, it was summer when this occurred. So I basically made all of the rides summer themed. And that's also explaining why the palm trees were there at the time. So there was a summer slide that would take you from the Rainbow Cloud all the way down here, where you could even find yourself a few silver tickets. Sorry, free silver tickets. That was a nice surprise. And then on top of the tree that's on the cruise ship, we actually had a secondary summer slide, which was really, really cool. It was a lot shorter, but it went from that tree on the cruise ship all the way down to the bottom, like right above the animal cage. So that was awesome, proving there were more rides in this party. But yeah, that's how that looked. But none of them will compare to this. The last roller coaster was, well, a completely summer-themed roller coaster, all lit up and everything. It went also alongside other roller coasters, and while riding, you could see various other palm trees in the background and collect 10 tickets from them. This went from the lab all the way to the cruise ship, and even inside the actual cruise ship, where you could collect even more tickets along the way. The entire cruise ship was decorated to represent this roller coaster. It even went all across the entire pool. At one point, you would stop, and what you would have to do is mainly, and by that I mean mainly, go down the cruise ship, the pool water slide. And then you would hop right back in. That would even say summer fair, because at the time this was a summer fair, and it would just continue going around the entire cruise ship, and that was super cool, while catching even more tickets along the way. That was super awesome. And at one point, as we could see here, there was a segment where you would have to grab a certain piece of the track for it to advance, which was really, really awesome at the time. So, with that being said, this was one of the coolest things we had ever done for a fair party. And I'm not even joking, guys. I don't know how we're going to be able to top this fair off in 2023. Now that you know it is a Christmas-themed version of the fair, after doing the Halloween fair 5 years ago. But look out for that in December. Don't know if it's going to be across both ZOE'S 2 and 3. I think I already confirmed that it was, but you never know what can change in 11 months. Either way, yes, it even went through the water tunnel. Yeah, I went all out with this roller coaster. And, yeah, that wasn't insane enough. Even through the frickin' ocean. I went all out with this roller coaster back in the day. And I'm truly proud of it now. Now, you want to know what's actually really, and I mean really godforsaken funny about this roller coaster? I just want to mention one thing. Because it's actually pretty cool and also kind of funny that I did it at the same time. But the roller coaster actually stayed for a month and a half after the party ended, and actually had an update to it after this party actually concluded. You gotta be kidding me. As you can see, there were palm trees. The palm trees were no longer lit up, but now it looked like actual palm trees. But it was not actually just the roller coaster that actually stayed. Even the slide up there actually stayed. But the one on the cruise ship also stayed too. Oh yeah, and here's what the rest of it looked like without the lit up stuff. It actually stayed for about a month. And now why was this? Well, we'll talk about it later, because it actually didn't occur for like a month. However, we're actually not done with this party. Well, we're done with the fair, but something else occurred alongside it. The same day the fair began at ZL2 was also the 200th episode. This party started on July 21st and would have originally ended on July 24th. However, we didn't actually come back here until the 25th, so yeah, it ended one day late, but who cares? Point is, this party was a whole lot smaller than the fair, which only consisted of a few rooms. You may have saw it while I was talking about the fair. And as you may have noticed, if we look pretty carefully here, across the 200 right there, you may notice there was one of the roller coasters that was actually going through one of the numbers. Anyway, this party has... okay. What the frick? Okay, I don't know what the heck is going on, but this party as follows. Basically, any room that was not decorated for the fair was decorated for the 200th episode of ZOE'S Lab 2, which was actually hit on July 22nd. It was supposed to be July 21st, but by the time we were going to do it, it was really late at night, and I also needed Rose Crystal. But again, it was like almost nearly midnight at the time, so we waited till the next day after to be able to actually do this episode. Anyway, it was more than just the flower shop and the outside. The hallway alongside Snowland and Rose Crystal's room were all updated respectively. So yeah, they all had 200 episode decorations as well, again, like Rose Crystal's room and Snowland as well. Oh yeah, even the storage room was updated for this party as well. So that was really cool. Oh, frick, I completely forgot to show you this when mentioning the fair. The unreleased room from the 6th anniversary party in 2021 actually was available in the fair party. I completely forgot to mention that. I apologize. I'm kind of glad I'm mentioning it here now. But yeah, during this, you were actually able to teleport to the ZOE'S Lab free fair, which was another awesome feature. So, that's something. My personal favorite room in this 200 episode party had to be Snowland. Well, could you blame me? Also, fun fact, after this party was over, this room actually stayed for the entire fair, actually. So much so that there were fair banners in replacement of the 200 episode banners after the party concluded. Because the room was so freaking awesome. This is one of my personal favorite room designs of the year, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. God, I love this room so much. Oh yeah, and again, some rooms that were decorated for the party were actually changed to alternate with the fair, which was really cool. And heck, just to be clear, I want to also mention even the storage room got updated, which was awesome at the time. And that's it. Now, let's move on to the next event. In fact, actually, we're going back to ZOE'S Lab 3 again. The next party to occur was in ZOE'S Lab 3. Actually, the next two events we're talking about here. This one being the Color Party 2022. It started on August 14th and ended on the 21st. So, unlike the previous Color Party, there were way more colors in this party compared to the last one in 2019. I will not be surprised if we have another color party. Not in ZOE'S Lab 3, but maybe in ZOE'S Lab 2 for the first time in 6 years. That would be awesome. Because I realized November, there's going to be 3 weeks without an event in November for ZOE'S Lab 2. Realize that? Anyway, back to the point. This party, yeah, again, featured way more colors compared to the previous color party. Some rooms that previously shared with other colors, such as light and dark green, all of them now had officially separate rooms. Like, for example, light green and dark green now both had separate rooms, which was actually really cool. And see, there's the original from 2019. As you can see, all colors were swapped around during this party. There were color-themed banners you could get during this party to represent each color. This was so cool. With that being said, there was so much. And the library it was actually really interesting. It was black on purpose, so it was a harder time to find the HQ. That was so freaking cool. That was planned, honestly. And it was awesome. And, well, there's not really much else at this party. It was basically a much bigger version of the 2019 party. Of course, just all swapped around, of course, so it didn't look exactly the same. Now, this was also white on purpose because normally when you spawn a sheep in, they are normally white for the most part. But, yeah, colors even like tan, for example, actually got in here, which was awesome at the time. And that was so freaking cool. And, well, that's really it. Oh, yeah, and then we go to the one room that will never, godforsaken, leave this godforsaken ore room. This is the one room that will... I have still not cleaned this up from the color party. To this very day, I have still not cleaned this up. Because, yeah, it's still there. That's the one room I have still not cleaned up from that party. I know, I really need to do that. And that's as of recording this video, of course. Yeah, remember how I said earlier that some rooms that previously had colors, like light blue and light green and dark green used to be mixed together? Yeah, now you can see they both have their separate rooms, which was actually really, really cool. So yeah, with that being said, outside of that, and of course, the balcony obviously was yellow to commemorate, of course, Goldie being the one who's always been up here for the last few years at the time, which now unfortunately isn't. So, that's pretty unfortunate. Outside of that, that is actually it for this entire party. There is nothing else I need to tell you, aside from the fact that, yeah. So, colors such as light gray, dark gray, tan, and, dark green and dark blue, oh, and cyan, all made their debuts during this party, which was awesome. So all those colors made their debuts during this party as colors in this color party. Without further ado, the next party also takes place in ZL3. So let's jump into it. The next party is the water party for 2022 for ZOE'S Lab 3. It started on August 28th and ended on September 4th. This was much bigger than the previous water party that occurred here 3 years prior, as I was a lot more creative. And it truly looked more like an aquatic-themed party. And heck, some of the rooms like the UFO were flooded during this party. That was so cool. It went for a more, again, aquatic theme than the previous one, which was still super awesome at the time. Even custom-made water-themed banners. There was a lot to love about this party. Like the previous water party, all the rooms were decorated, obviously in completely different designs. And yes, there was even a wave pool finally, after not appearing in the previous one. That was super cool. With that being said, yes, there was even a pool down here that you could swim in for like laps. So that was also super awesome. There were items every single day of the party, like the colors party as well. So that was pretty sweet. And with that being said, one of my personal favorite rooms had to have been, well, this monstrosity. Yeah. This had to be one of my personal favorite rooms. Also, let's just be clear. Both of these two events I have just mentioned regarding ZL3, I wasn't even at home at the time when these two events occurred. So I purposely had to pre-record these a few weeks in advance because I wasn't going to be at home when these two parties occurred, the color party and water party. Yeah, I was in New York when these parties occurred, by the way, so I literally had to pre-record them weeks in advance so I can get them up before I left. Because at the time that the car party was going on, I was in the Buffalo House, and at the time that this party was going on, the water party, I was in the Thousand Islands. So I had to literally pre-record everything at home a few weeks in advance. So that's a little fun fact about this party and the car party I forgot to mention. And yeah, it was just so cool. It was way better than the 2019 party, as you could probably tell. There was a lot more. We even had a few hot tubs here. Even though... Oh, yeah, and even water-themed palm trees. That was brand new at the time. And that was so cool. With that being said, yeah, even the, staircase of the balcony was like a huge water slide. That was awesome. And... man, what a good party. And see, that's what I loved about this. Even the lab office was almost completely flooded. And the entire UFO was flooded. Man, what a good party. Okay, we're back at ZOE'S Up 2 again. Hopefully for the rest of this. Yeah, did you know why I went to only ZL3 for those last two parties? Because originally, there was a party called Camp ZOE'S Up 2 that was supposed to occur from August 11th to 25th as a surprise party vote, but that didn't end up happening because I didn't finish it in time before I left for New York. And then, did I also mention that there was also supposed to be a Final Days of Summer party that would have occurred from September 1st to the 8th, but because I didn't finish the Camp ZOE'S Up 2 event in time, that never went up in time. And lastly, but not least, did you know there was also a fiesta going on in the special labs during this? That was actually never planned, but I added it in just for the sake of why not. This all leads into our next event. The Camp ZOE'S Lab, the Final Days of Summer Camp ZOE'S Lab 2 Fusion Fiesta. A combination of 3 parties that were supposed to occur in the span of a month. That can explain why I just mentioned when those other 2 parties, the Camp ZOE'S Lab 2 and Final Days of Summer, were supposed to occur. Because they didn't occur during those times. Instead, we got, again, the Final Days of Summer Camp ZOE'S Lab 2 Fusion Fiesta, which started on September 15th and ended on the 22nd. As the name addressed, this was a combination between, of course, the party that was supposed to be held in August, Camp ZOE'S Lab 2, and then, again, a combination of the Final Days of Summer party, as I also previously addressed, and again, lastly, a fiesta, which was, again, not planned, but when I heard the name Fiesta in the name, which, by the way, thank you, Cool Cat 33 for coming up with the name, I just had to put a Fiesta event in there. I could not waste that opportunity to not do that. Also, I would look kind of dumb if I didn't do that. Looking back, I would look kind of dumb if I didn't do that. Anyway, what's the point of this event? Well, as I addressed, these are combinations of 3 events. For Camp ZOE'S Lab 2, there were camp-themed decorations all over the lab, and some areas outside of the labs, actually. And because of it being a camp theme, the only decorations were outside and not inside. For example, the front of the lab, the backyard, my house, and actually that's it. And in fact, for this orange tent right here, you purposely had to win the target game that was in the backyard at the time. Yep. Sorry, my mistake. The bell game. Good God. Yep, the bell game. Yep, hit all 11 bells in 10 seconds to win this tent. Yep, that tent was not free. You actually had to win it. Outside of that, the rest of these tents, though, you could do stuff. I made everything look like a cool camp theme here, as you can see. And you were able to collect these said shoulder boxes from each tent to collect a said banner. AKA, well, that. In order to claim the camp banner, you had to collect all the shulker boxes from each tent all around the lab, which was really cool. Oh, and the roof was decorated too during this party, I just remembered. Yep, the roof was decorated too. And there, I think, was actually a target game. Am I right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm right with that one. Yep, there we go. There's the target game that you had to shoot with a crossbow, which was really cool. And with that being said, that was a really cool party. That was supposed to be the August party, and then it didn't happen. But then, the final days of summer party. This was way bigger than the one in 2017, as it was all the inside rooms. Now remember how I said earlier why these roller coasters actually stayed around for about a month? That was because of this party. After this party, they were removed, alongside the water slide on the Rainbow Cloud and the water slide on the cruise ship. Alongside, again, the summer coaster. Which, by the way, fun fact, I forgot to mention to all of you, if we fast forward here, did I ever get a chance to mention that all of the palm trees were updated, and now it said summertime rather than summer fair, because this was a few months after the fair. But yeah, even all the palm trees were updated, and made everything look nice and beautiful for this party. And now they had a little blue on the palm trees to make it look more summer themed. The point is, as I addressed, the summer party occurred only in the inside rooms, and it made it look super awesome. Yeah, this was way bigger than the original, and all the pipes were flooded too, by the way, which was a nice little touch. A nice little touch to detail. I mean, why not? I mean, you gotta have a little reference to that party at one point, the summer party 2017. I might do that again for the water party this year, I don't know. Which now, since they're both occurring in both labs, who knows what I'll come up with. Anyway, you get the point with this party. Literally the entire lab downstairs. I mean, literally the entire lab downstairs was decorated during this party. Also, this was around the time that Cool Cat 33 wanted me to decorate the HQ more. So, I gave in and actually decorated it, since he asked me to decorate it more. And I have been decorating it for almost every event ever since. Actually, I'm pretty sure every event ever since. Yeah, Cool Cat 33 asked me to decorate the HQ more. So, I gave in, and I'm still doing that now. Now, the anniversary party might be the last time it's decorated for a bit. But the point is, this was still a very fun party. And it was so cool seeing everything summer themed. Now, with the last party being the Fiesta, on the other hand, they were all decorated in... It was all held in the special labs. There we go. I am talking way too dang fast. But you guys get the point. So, basically, yep, it was literally all held in the special labs. And yes, don't worry, Fiesta Sheep did make an appearance somewhere, which, yes, he was literally right there, which proves he actually was made an appearance here. this was really cool. Of course, we had some Fiesta-themed items, like always, in tradition. But yep, it was only located in the Special Labs, making this one of the first parties ever to ever actually be only located in the Special Labs, an event exclusive to the Special Labs. So that was really cool. I think this might actually have been the first ever event exclusive to the Special Labs, which was actually really cool at the time. So it was mainly just the Fiesta, but 10 times bigger. Yeah, because the entire Special Labs was decorated. In fact, I think this was the first year to ever actually have a banner. So that was really dang cool. With that being said, that is super cool. Oh yeah, and there was this little game to tell which one was shoes and which one wasn't. But you get the idea. It was mainly just the Fiesta again, just bigger and more items. With that being said, that is it for this entire free event party. And with that being said, let's move on to ZOE'S Lab Free again. Yep, time to alternate between both of them again. Oh boy. Actually, that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of the video. God, come on. Actually, I'm not going to lie, that's actually a good thing. The next party took place in ZOE'S Lab Free, this being Operation Slime. Fun fact, this was also going on in the exact same time as Legos Island, although it actually started one day prior to that, which we will get to Legos Island events later on. Not in this video, of course. No, God, no. That's a separate video on its own. Anyway, Operation Slime. This was the first one to be held in ZOE'S Lab Free. And actually, fun fact, outside of Legos Island, actually. Yep, this was the first time Operation Slime was held outside of Legos Island. Which, yes, it did occur that year in 2022. It started on September 18th and ended on October 2nd. This, well, was basically like the Legos Island one in 2020, just at ZOE'S Lab Free. And there were way more missions. As you could tell, the entire lab was covered in slime at the time during this party. And it was genuinely insane. The lab was completely covered in slime. And it took forever to get it all out. Now, who was behind this? It was none other than Evil Cluck. Yeah, he was the one behind it. And, yeah, even the HQ got destroyed. Dang, that's messed up. And, yeah, it literally took forever to get rid of all of the slime across the lab. And, dang, there was so much to clean up. To the point where, as you can notice, the first mission was cleaning up the entire outside of the lab. So that was really, really cool. But also, it took forever. Because that was one of the biggest areas of the lab. Yep, the first mission was cleaning up the outside of the lab. And man, it took forever. But it was well worth it. And I think there were items too, I think. Or that might have been the Legos Island one. I'm not sure. I don't remember correctly. But there were, I think, 8 missions total, spreading across 2 weeks. And that was really cool. It was nice to see Operation Slime outside of Legos Island and in the lab for once. Of course, will this happen again? Probably not. Maybe? I don't know. Maybe we can get another Legos Island exclusive event in here somewhere. With that being said, oh, wait a minute. We already are, dang it. With Festival of Lights in May. And, with that being said, that's it for Operation Slime. There is genuinely nothing else that needs to be said about this party. Aside from just cleaning up more slime as the party went on. Yep, as the party went on, a ton more slime was cleaned up across the lab. And that was super awesome. Again, it did take forever, but it was worth it in the end. It was also pretty satisfying destroying all the slime too. So that's a little something I thought I'd just point out. It's actually pretty satisfying. And also, I forgot to mention, I almost would have went this entire time without mentioning that we carried the Cool Get 30 Free sheet basically everywhere in this party. It was pretty satisfying destroying the slime if you clicked really fast. But I'll tell you that, yeah, we did bring the Cool Get 30 Free sheep across us for the entire event, and that was super cool. But dang, it was satisfying destroying all the slime. It did again take forever, but it was actually really satisfying cleaning it all up. Now, when we got to the harder rooms, yeah, that's when things, started getting a bit annoying. But it was still really a fun event, nonetheless. Now, what was going on in ZL2 during this time? It was the celebration of fall. You see, while ZOE'S 3 was in the middle of a little slime problem, ZOE'S 2, on the other hand, was all decorated for fall. And remember how I said earlier that the summer coaster alongside all summer themed activities would be removed once this party ended? Well, once this party began? Well, yeah, it got removed just in time for the fall event to begin. And yes, for the Halloween party, we will get to that later in around, not the next event, but the next one after, actually. With that being said, as you would expect, the entire lab was decorated for fall. And, well, I don't lie here. The entire lab was decorated with fall decorations. And this was the first time that this event was being held outside of Lego's Island and the backyard. So that was super cool. There were a lot of events this year that actually finally made their way to the lab outside of the backyard or Lego's Island, and actually, the Creations World as well. So this was the only place that this event has still not occurred yet, has been ZOE'S 3. September 17th! That will be a reality. So on September 17th, it will be official that all 5 areas have had a celebration of fall. So, yeah. Some elements were still taken from the final days of summer party, but it was pretty obvious, as that party was literally just held before this. Either way, there were fall items every 2 days in this party. In fact, actually, the library here was kind of a little reference to the library design prior to the special labs arriving. So that was a nice little touch. As you can notice here, it was a little reference to when before the special labs were introduced. So that was really cool. And yes, here's what I meant by he wanted me to decorate the HQ more. And that was something back then. Oh yeah, future party. We will also get to that later. With that being said, oh yeah, there was even a fall maze during this party. Where basically it was above ground and underground at the same time, where we did find Aquamarine and the Cool Get 30 Free sheep. That was pretty cool. Oh yeah, and that was a sneak peek for the upcoming Halloween party at the time. With that being said, the fall maze was really, really cool. It was later converted to ice during the Christmas party, which we will get to later. But you guys get the genuine idea. I even started decorating my house more, which was really cool. So, yeah, I was starting to decorate my house a whole lot more during this party. And that was super cool. So, yeah, with that being said, guys, that is really it for this party. There was not really much else to talk about outside of just the lab finally having a celebration of fall after all these years. That was super, super awesome. And here's to having one in ZL3 in September. Yay! Speaking of ZOE'S 2, though, on the other hand, we're actually not done here. I forgot to mention, we actually have another mini-event. Oh, hold up, guys! I just realized. I forgot to tell you how long this went. It started on September 22nd and ended on October 6th. I am getting these messed up, aren't I? Yep, September 22nd to October 6th. Almost completely forgot to mention that before going on to the next event. We finally did it. For the first time since 2019, we finally did another anniversary celebration for ZOE'S Lab 2. It started on September 29th and ended on October 6th. This was in celebration of ZOE'S Lab 2's 7th anniversary, which was on September 29th, actually. So, it made sense to finally do something related to the anniversary of all this time. This was held during the second week of the celebration of fall. And some fall banners that used to be fall banners alone were actually changed to lab banners. So that was really cool. This party was actually really cool. It was a lot smaller than the celebration of fall, but I can tell you this. It was really cool. There were banners and cakes everywhere during this party. And it was super cool. Also, during the celebration of fall, I forgot to mention, there were leaves everywhere during that party as well. That's something I forgot to tell you. Yeah, even the storage room. It's all decorated for ZOE'S Lab 2's anniversary. And yeah, even the underground party room. Yeah, a lot of elements of the fall event were actually removed in favor of this party. And remained that way until the party was actually cleaned up. So that was something. And yes, for the third time, the HQ was actually decorated for something. So that was really cool. And also, I forgot to mention in the celebration of fall, the wagons from the Creations World made their debut here. But yeah, almost basically everywhere in the world was decorated for this party. And it was so freaking cool. Any place outside of the lab, too, was also decorated for this party, which was also really cool at the exact same time. It was so freaking awesome. And genuinely speaking, that is so awesome. To have almost the entire lab decorated during this party. Almost the entirety of the world, too. So that was a major accomplishment, as we could clearly tell here. That was a major accomplishment. Having almost the entire world decorated alongside the lab. Even the special labs were decorated too, which was awesome as well. So you could tell I tried decorating as much of the world as possible, even the special labs. Basically everywhere could not miss out on this party. And, well, unfortunately the Classic HQ did not get decorated. Unfortunately, that's fine. I tried to at least get as much of this party as humanly possible. With that being said, that is really awesome. And that's it for this party. Man, this party was so good. And also, we're nearing the end of the year now, so this shouldn't last too much longer. Now back to ZOE'S Lab 3 again, because we have another operation. Yep, 2 in a row. This time was actually a completely new operation at the time. This was Operation Memory. It started on October 9th and ended on October 16th. This was just a 1-week operation. This was all about Rose Crystal. During this party, Evil Chief Leader went into her mind and completely destroyed it, losing all of Rose Crystal's memories. We were able to go inside her mind and literally find all of her memories across the entire lab's history. And my god, this was so cool. Now, I don't know if we're going to be doing something based off of me. Oh, how cool would it be if I do one based off myself? Who would like to see that in Lego's Island one day? Seriously, who would like to see that in Lego's Island one day? What if I do one based off myself? That would be sick. I just don't know how I would be able to do it since I have a lot more knowledge of these things than Rose Crystal. So this was super dang cool. Exploring the mind of Rose Crystal was so freaking cool. We had one room based off of all the lab rooms. We also had one based off of all the parties that have occurred in the lab's history throughout the last 7 years at the time. We also, if we look correctly here, we had one based off of areas outside of the lab, mainly in ZOE'S Lab 2. We also had, well, actually that was it. Oh, correction. We actually, I think we had one based off of the sheep as well, which that would make sense. Now, during this party, we had to find her favorite things related to the lab and put it back into the core of her mind for her mind to be reset. Of course, at the end, after getting all the memories put into the core, ultimately, one of the most unexpected things happened. We were able to go behind the core, and ultimately, awaiting us was Evil Sheep Leader, who was behind this the whole time. And ultimately, wiped her entire mind. Meaning everything we did throughout that week was completely gone. The entirety of the mind of Rose Crystal was completely wiped. All of the memories we collected throughout the week were gone. And we had to purposely defeat Evil Sheep Leader to be able to get all of them back. And oh boy, this was insane. And Rose Crystal was trapped during this time so we could actually get into her mind. We had this machine connected to her so we could actually go inside. And it was so freaking cool. You do not understand how freaking awesome it was. And ultimately, we actually got locked out of her mind itself at one point, where ultimately, we actually had to find Evil Sheep Leader elsewhere. Ultimately, we found him in the Special Evil Sheep Leader's base in Special ZOE'S Lab 3, where we ultimately defeated Evil Sheep Leader and Special Evil Sheep Leader, and ultimately saved the mind of Rose Crystal, alongside all of the memories that ultimately took place. And yes, ultimately, everything went back to normal, and everything in the mind of her thankfully went back in after Evil Sheep Leader was defeated. This was one of the coolest events we had ever done in the lab's history. And I will not be surprised if a event revolving around myself is somehow implemented. I'm only just guessing. I don't know if I want to actually make that official or not. But, oh yeah, right, this last one I forgot was all about operations. Right, there was actually a fifth one. It was all about the operation events in the lab. And yeah, so at the end, we purposely had to do everything all over again because everything got wiped. But yeah, what a party this was. And ultimately, after this was over, the entire machine was just gone. Because it was the day the party ended that I completed the rest of this. And, man, what an event we had here. Back in ZOE'S Lab 2, however, we had another mini-event. This was for the 6-year anniversary of Rose Crystal's YouTube channel. This was starting on October 13th and was originally just supposed to be I think 3 days. It, I think turned into a whole week. Yeah, this was only meant to be a weekend-long event, and then it would be taken down a few days before the Halloween party, which we will get to right after this, actually. Man, we just keep swapping between the two. Holy frick. Yeah, prepare to see that for the rest of the year. This was a much smaller party compared to Operation Memory, as this was actually just only a few rooms as compared to a whole ton of rooms that we saw during Operation Memory. And honestly, fun fact, I wasn't originally planning to make this event right here, the Rose Crystal anniversary, but I only did it just because I needed to do something related to that day. Plus also, there was a ZOE'S Lab 2 update coming out that day, so why not do something about it? Anyway, the entire lab was decorated in a rose theme, hence the name Rose Crystal. And as a reference to the first anniversary party of Rose Crystal in the original ZOE'S Lab 5 years prior, we actually could light down a white sheet revealing the classic roller coaster that was in that party back then. That was so freaking awesome. That's right. You could literally go down the classic roller coaster that was there during that party 5 years ago. And that was behind the number 6. You see, this was so freaking cool, man. I know it was just a few rooms, but you could clearly see the dedication I had to this party. There were only a few items such as the anniversary hat, and actually, I think that was it, actually. Outside of just a ton of rose and flower decorations, there wasn't really much else to say about this party. Oh, and a lot of pink! I'll tell you that. There was a lot of pink. And ultimately, this was just a really nice mini-event. And I truly had a lot of fun with this party. I know there wasn't really much to say about this party because it was really small, but it was nice having an anniversary for Rose Crystal's anniversary again after 5 years, as we didn't do one for the 2nd or through 5th anniversaries respectively. We never actually did anything, outside of Rose Crystal making a short video. Well, she didn't do that this year around. Maybe this year for 7 years. Outside of that, that's it for this party. There's really not much else to say. Outside of, it was just a nice little mini event. And that's it. I don't need to say anything else here. Let's move on to the next event, which is finally Halloween. Finally, we get to the Halloween parties, because we got 2 of them here. The Halloween Party 2022. It started on October 20th and ended on November 3rd. This year, we actually did something completely different and based it all off of the Deep Dark, which we previously saw in Operation Dome in ZL2 a few months prior in June, and earlier in this story video, if you look back far enough. Anyway, in this Halloween party, the Deep Dark literally took over the entirety of ZOE'S Lab 2, covering basically everything in the Deep Dark. The Deep Dark literally took over everything for 2 weeks straight. And this was insane. During this party, we purposely had to free the lab by getting rid of basically everything related to the Deep Dark. This was one of the more crazier events. In fact, actually, this was the first ever mission-based Halloween party ever in the lab's history. So that was something pretty crazy. But man, this was one of the darkest Halloween parties we had ever done in the lab's history. Oh, actually, correction. I spoke a little too soon there. Wait till we get to the ZL3 one. That is dark. Actually, both of these are dark, but the ZL3 one is even darker than this. You thought this was dark? Yeah. I'll tell you in a second. The ZL3 one is so much darker. But I'll appreciate it. This one was actually really cool. So again, all Halloween activities returned from previous years, even though the lab was still in the Deep Dark. Again, we had to free the lab from the Deep Dark via various missions. And while it did take a while to complete, my God, it looks so cool though. And ultimately, yeah, we had a lot going into this. And heck, even the power source was gone temporarily. Which, yes, I know what you're thinking. Didn't that cause the lab takeover? It sure did, except this time, it was gone temporarily because the Deep Dark took over. The power source was thankfully put back once the Deep Dark was actually gone. But ultimately, this was one of the craziest Halloween parties of all time. Of course, you know we couldn't have the Deep Dark theme without the one hiding in it, the Warden himself. You know we couldn't have this Halloween party without him. Ultimately, at the end of the party on Halloween, we had to fight the Warden to officially free the lab entirely from the Deep Dark. We did everything, like getting rid of the Sluck Veins, the Skulk Shrekkers, and the Skulk Sensors, and all of that. And all of that, all we needed to do then was just defeat the warden, and then we could have officially freed the lab. This was a really insane battle that took place during this party, and truly, it was the darkest Halloween party of all time. At least in terms of ZOE'S Lab 2, of course, because of course, remember what I just said about ZL3? Oh yeah! And after the warden was defeated, we got to see what this entire Halloween party looked like after the Deep Dark was officially no more. This was revealed on Halloween, and my god, this was so cool. We could literally see what this party was supposed to look like before the Deep Dark took over. That was one of the best things about this Halloween party. Seeing what this would look like without the Deep Dark. And it looked so freaking cool. I'll tell you myself, I truly went all out with these rooms. And I can always appreciate them. But yeah, it was so cool seeing what the Halloween party looked like without the Deep Dark rooms. And just to be clear, I'm pretty sure almost everywhere in the lab was decorated during this party. Like, basically everywhere was dark. Everywhere was decorated during this party. And I truly had a fun time making this party after the warden was defeated. It was so cool seeing what it looked like after. And this is one of the best parts of this party. And yeah. However, did I ever get to mention that alongside the lab changing back after the warden was defeated, did I actually ever get to mention that in this party, there was a candy hunt. For the first time in ZOE'S Lab history, there was a candy hunt during the Halloween party. Outside of having it in 2021? No, but I mean it's just a little mini activity this time around. Yes, there was a candy hunt, which can explain the little symbol down here. And ultimately, oh yeah, the skyscraper. Who can forget the skyscraper? The skyscraper was actually different. I forgot to mention. The skyscraper looked completely different. I forgot to mention earlier. Like, I literally forgot to mention the skyscraper earlier. This was so freaking cool. The skyscraper was actually different. By difference, I am meaning that basically everywhere in the skyscraper had completely new colors and all new challenges. All these rooms were completely different. There was one where you fought zombies, went through a haunted castle maze in reference to ZL3, the zombie part in reference to Lego's Island, the pumpkin theme in reference to the Creations World, and lastly, but not least, basically one relating to the Deep Dark theme. So we had basically everything here. This was so awesome to finally see the skyscraper finally be different in terms of not just the building colors, but the entirety of the challenges, which I know was something we did in 2021. The difference this time was not just new challenges, but just an entirely new colored skyscraper. And even the windows were finally different. Like, literally, all of the windows were finally different. They were no longer the yellow windows that you had been seeing all these years. No. Instead, they were actually intentionally the tinted windows. They were intentionally the tinted windows. That's right. After all of these years, we finally had something different. And it was so cool seeing all of it like this. As I addressed earlier, we did have a candy hunt across the entire world of ZOE'S Lab 2, which was really cool. And it was so awesome. With that being said, this was one of the coolest Halloween parties we had ever done. And I truly hope we get more parties like this, where we actually, this was one of the more creative Halloween parties, I'm not gonna lie. And that's it. Now, the ZOE'S Lab free version of this party, which was completely different. The Halloween party. It started on October 23rd and ended on November 6th. This was even darker than the ZOE'S Lab 2 one. You thought the Deep Dark was insane? Oh, frick no. This was straight up dark. In terms of, you see these? This was based off of all these worlds' deaths, which have happened at one point. But nothing will ever compare to the fact that every single sheep died. Literally, every single sheep literally died during this party. All of them fell into the lava except for one. And that survivor was none other than Flower Sheep. Somehow, out of some godforsaken miracle, Flower Sheep was the only one who survived all of this. Now, ultimately, the theme itself. Evil Sheep Leader turned this into a haunted castle. And, well, it shows. That's right, a freaking haunted castle. This was one of the most insane things we had ever seen Evil Sheep Leader do. This was a freaking haunted castle, mind you. Everything looked like it. And yes, we did come back on November 5th to defeat Evil Sheep Leader. And this was ultimately probably one of the greatest Halloween parties we had ever done. This was not only the darkest because all the sheep died, but it was also a little bit of a troll because of all of these gravestones indicating all of these worlds' deaths, except for the Creations World and Backyard, of course, because those two have not been discontinued yet, and will never be. But the other three have died at one point, the worlds. But this had to be the most darkest thing ever. Having all the sheep die and not being revived for an extremely long time was insane. The fact that we literally lost all the sheep just because I was trying to rescue them, with Flower Sheep being the only survivor. She was the only sheep to stay alive forever. She never died. And ultimately, this was one of the cruelest and most darkest Halloween parties of all time. Not only did the lab get turned into a castle, but again, all the sheep died, except for Flower Sheep. However, there was a little good part about this party as well. The entirety of the lab outside of it was decorated for Halloween, thankfully. We had a lot of great things during this party. Yes, everywhere was decorated. Even in space, it was decorated too, which was awesome to see everywhere in ZL3 decorated. Now, that could have been because ZL3 is a much smaller world, but you guys get the idea. Ultimately, this was awesome. Even the special labs were decorated during this time too, proving this was one of the greatest Halloween parties we have ever done, but definitely the most darkest and cruelest. With all the sheep dead, it was going to be a while until we saw those guys again. With Flower Sheep being the only survivor, yeah, things were not looking good. But there was one good thing about this party. Like ZOE'S Lab 2, there was a candy hunt, which took place on the second week of this party. But it was the day before Halloween. In this, we had to find candies all over the world of ZOE'S Lab 2, of ZOE'S Lab 3, which was really, really cool. And this only lasted for 1 week, October 30th to November 6th. So during the second week of this whole party, we had a candy hunt. Some of them took place in space. Some of them just took place across the lab. But ultimately, this was so freaking cool. The candy hunt was hosted by Flower Sheep, as you probably would expect, because she was the only one still alive at the time. In fact, the HQ was actually locked entirely during this party. only if we could get the candy. Once the candy were found, I think we're actually able to actually get into the HQ, I think. And I think get a prize along the way. We were actually able to get back into the HQ during this time. Which was awesome, because Evil Street Leader blocked it off during this party. And, so that was a nice little surprise. Either way, this was a crazy Halloween party. With that being said, that is it for this, and now, there's not really much else that needs to be said. Now that we're done with Halloween, let's move on to November. The next party to occur was in ZOE'S Lab 2, the Future Party. It started on November 17th and ended, originally it was supposed to end on December 1st. Instead, it actually ended on December 3rd because I actually was working on the Legos on Christmas that entire day. Anyway, this party was actually held for a specific reason. It was held to celebrate the 5-year anniversary since the 2017 ZOE'S Lab 2 corruption. You can thank Cokehead 33 for that. But yes, we went 5 years into the future to November 23rd, 2027, aka 10 years after the corruption would have originally occurred in. And that was super cool. The entire lab itself was completely decorated like the future, and this was so freaking cool. Literally, this was all held just because of one little thing that happened on November 23rd, 2017. And ultimately, this could not have been one of the greatest ways to celebrate this. Because it truly was. This was one of the most epic ways to celebrate this big of a thing. We truly went all out here. And throughout the party, there were various missions because Master Evil Uncrush from 2018 traveled to 2027 to destroy and wreck the future. What I had to do was destroy everything that he had sent to save the future. And ultimately, at the end, defeat him alongside his present-day version in Evil Street Leader's 2018 base. So we ultimately went into the future and back in time at the exact same time. But this was in the finale of the party. With that being said, the Underground Party Room had to be one of my personal favorite rooms. With that being said, the Future Lab looked absolutely amazing. And ultimately, again, this was one of the greatest ways to celebrate the 5-year anniversary of the corruption. And I know exactly what we're doing to celebrate 5 years since ZOE'S Lab 2 disappeared. Oh, I know what we're doing. Hint, hint, I think we finally found a date for a certain Operation ZOE'S Lab. Yep, it's to celebrate 5 years since that disappearance. Look out for that in around 7 months, as of recording this. Ultimately, I had a lot of fun with this party. And, well, I'm proud to announce that it will be back for ZOE'S Lab 3 for its anniversary in February. Just in the style of ZOE'S Lab 3, of course. So look out for that. I thought I'd just announce that while we're talking about this. Ultimately, we had a blast with this party. Great way to celebrate this anniversary, and it could not have been done any other way. And with that being said, that's it. Also, the lab did not need to look this pretty. Just to be clear. Holy frick, we went all out. It did not need to look this pretty. But it did anyway because why not? But we're not done with events that are being totally lit up. Oh, no, God, no. The ZL3 event of November should continue that trend. What I mean by that was that this was the 100th episode of ZOE'S Lab 3. Finally, after 5.5 years, we had finally done it. And this party was absolutely lit. It started on November 20th and was originally supposed to end on the 27th, but I forgot to take it down, or I also forgot to go on to the lab that day, so it instead ended on December 4th. During this party, well, it was to celebrate the 100th episode of ZOE'S Lab 3, as the name suggests. And we'll get to that Christmas party very, very soon, actually. Just a few events away from that. Anyway, as you would expect, Rose Crystal was a part of this, because of course it was the 100th episode. This party was freaking insane! The entirety, and I mean the entirety, of ZOE'S Lab 3 was decorated for this party, and all the sheep that were killed in the Halloween Party 2022 were thankfully revived during this party. That was so awesome! Yes, having everyone revived, and that can explain the gravestones. Everyone was revived during this party. And this was so cool. A similar room to the Fair of 2022 for ZL2 appeared during this party, just more customized to fit with ZL3. It was in the same room, also to more fit with the 100 episodes. Ultimately, this could not have gone out any better. This was so cool. And ultimately, on the balcony, if we can look correctly, yeah, it was like, where the frick is the balcony? Oh yeah, there it is. There was a water slide and pool and everything. It was so cool. But, yeah, this was a fun party. So all the sheep were revived during this party that were killed in the 100th episode, in the Halloween party, as I addressed. And as, again, I addressed, everywhere in the world was decorated, which was still really awesome. And it was all in the colors of ZOE'S Lab 3 in the universe theme. The candles, to be exact. Outside of that, this was a really fun party. And with that being said, I truly do hope you guys love it. Of course, you can watch the original videos for all these parties in their said playlists of ZOE'S Lab 2 and 3. This was truly a fun party. And because some of these were in space, I added a few little space elements to some of these rooms as well, as you could tell. Some rooms do look different compared to the ones below. And yeah, with that being said, that is it for this party. There's really not much else to say since it was only supposed to be a 1-week party. But it ended up being a 2-week party because I, again, forgot to remove it. But literally everywhere in ZOE'S Lab 3 was decorated. And it was truly one of the greatest milestone parties we'd ever done. And the most lit. I'll tell you that one. Anyway, like ZOE'S Lab 2, it was at nighttime. And could you blame me? It looks so cool. Go Get Ready 3 recommended it being at nighttime. With that being said, that is it for this party. And, well, back to ZOE'S Lab 2 again, because we have another mini-event. What's with all the mini-events? Oh, yeah, also, just to be clear, look at this. Yeah, it's almost midnight. I better get this done soon. The next party to occur in ZOE'S Lab 2 was the Thanksgiving mini-event. What the frick? Okay, we're back now. So, this party was really small. It started on November 24th and was originally only supposed to be like a 3-day mini event ending on the 27th. But it actually ended on the 29th because I forgot to take it down. Oh boy! And this should be the last event that ended later than usual. There was a lot of those this year. Anyway, this party only took place in ZOE'S Lab 2, rather than ZOE'S Lab 3. Which, yeah, is something I should have done in ZL3. I don't know, maybe this year. But, guys, yeah, it only took place outside of the lab. There was a few items to collect, such as a Thanksgiving hat, and the free foods featured at the party. Of course, all on different tables. As usual, we had the usual brown and yellow for this party as well. I really should branch out of those colors and actually do more than just those two. I'll do that this year, maybe. Either way, like I said, it was a small party, so there wasn't really much decorated outside of the outside, and it was nice. Also, for the first time in 5 years, actually, at the time, it was the first Thanksgiving mini-event in the lab in 5 years at the time. So that was really cool. And fun fact, the reason it stayed up for a few days was actually because literally the day after November 24th, because we were in 2027 at the time, Thanksgiving 2027, if you look it up, is actually November 25th. Now, because we were in 2027 at the time, I actually left it up for a few days to kind of commemorate that. Even Cool Get 33 pointed that out, actually, at one point. So, that's something to note about. And with that being said, there wasn't really much outside of the turkey, the pumpkin pie, and bread all being available during this party. There wasn't really much else to say about this party, outside of the fact that it was the first one in 5 years at the time, since 2017. And that was it. You know what's funny about the first week of December 2022? We had 2 mini events in the same week. One across both labs. This first one, in ZOE'S Lab 3, on December 4th, 2022, was the 1-year anniversary party for Operation ZOE'S Lab. It started on December 4th and only lasted 1 day. Yep! 1 day. December 4th. As this would address, this was, of course, to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Operation ZOE'S Lab, as it occurred 1 year prior on December 4th, 2021. Again, as the name suggests, this party featured all the old memories from this original party, from the original Operation ZOE'S Lab throughout its first year of existence, which was, of course, Operation ZOE'S Lab 2021 and 22, respectively. There were decorations based off of both Operation ZOE'S Labs that occurred in the first year, which was really cool. We even had a little backstory between both of them, or at least explaining what those two were based off of, as it addresses here. They talked about both Operation ZOE'S Labs that occurred in the first year, which was really awesome at the time. It was nice to see their little history, despite them occurring not that long back. With that being said, there was not really much to say about this mini event outside of a hat being available. And outside of just a few decorations and just reading the history of these two events in its first year, there wasn't really much to talk about. Outside of the huge Master Evil Hunkers logo up there, there wasn't really much to say about that. The entire lab was decorated. Well, the entire lab was just not decorated, outside of just the outside of the lab. Oh yeah, and we did have a catalog. But ultimately, there is literally nothing else to say about this mini party, outside of it just being based off of this anniversary party. And if you thought we were done with mini events, nope! Because just 4 days later, in ZOE'S Lab 2 on December 8th, we had another mini event. And this is the last one. It started on December 8th and ended the day after. It only went for 1 day, much like the Operation ZOE'S Lab anniversary. What was this one? It was... Actually, let me read this up so I don't get this name wrong. It was... Hold on, I'm finding it. I don't want to get this wrong, so let me read this up. This is the one event I don't want to get the name wrong. It is the PHSC graduation party, or just the Rose Crystal graduation party. Either way, this party celebrated Rose Crystal graduating from the college she was at for the past 2 years prior to this, which was Pastor Hernando State College. The party was set up like how the graduation was in real life. Now, this event was actually never supposed to be a thing, but Rose Crystal asked me to do it. So, I did it. I made a 2-room mini event based off of this, and oh boy, it looked super cool. For the first time in ZOE'S Lab history, there were items only exclusive to Rose Crystal because this was her graduation party. This was so dang cool. And while this was just a 2-room event, they resembled how the graduation was in real life. And we even had an item based off of the degree she got. We tried to make this as real as possible. And this all took only maybe like a few hours to make. because I wanted it to make it almost just like the original graduation that took place on the exact day that this party was literally held the day the graduation actually happened. That's why it was on December 8th. With that being said, that was super cool. So the lab office and the outside were the only two rooms decorated during this party. So that was super cool. And ultimately, that's it. We did have a few other decorations, such as some banners as well. There were only two items that two items that I could collect, which was the graduation hat and the graduation banner, or just the PHSC banner. That was super freaking cool. And yes, the Christmas party, I'll get to that in a minute, because that's actually the second to last event of the year. Why do I say second to last? Because we still technically got ZO3's. It's technically the last event of the year, but we still got the ZO3 version, so I'll say second to last. Either way, this party was so awesome despite it being a 2-room event. It was nice that I could make something for Rose Crystal's graduation. Again, this wasn't originally planned, but I thought, and she thought, just make one. So again, that's what I did. I just made one because why the frick not? This was a huge day for her at the time, so I had to make something related to it. The point is, I don't know if we're ever going to have something like this again. So, with that being said, this was a nice little mini event at the time just to commemorate this special day. And with that being said, let's move on to the final event of the year. The first of two. The final party of the year! The Christmas Party 2022. Well, the ZL2 version, of course. Was, of course, the Christmas Party 2022. It started on December 15th and ended on the 29th. This had to be one of the biggest Christmas parties of all time. This was one of the wildest Christmas parties for one reason. Actually, sorry, 2 reasons. Number 1, this party actually, for the first time ever in ZOE'S Lab history, and I mean for the literal first ever time ever in ZOE'S Lab history, this was the first mission-based and story-based Christmas party. That's right. On December 15th, 2022, Santa Sheep accidentally crashed his sleigh in the front of the lab, or at least right next to it, causing it to be a total wreck when he landed. He crashed into the lab, and his sleigh got destroyed. And it was insane. Throughout the party, we had to find the pieces to his sleigh to reassemble it. And after all of the pieces were officially reassembled onto the sleigh, we later found out that that was actually an evil clone of Santa Sheep that ultimately crashed the sleigh, causing us to even do all those missions. Ultimately, we realized it was all for nothing, and in reality was a year blocker preventing us from getting into 2023. Ultimately, though, after finding the real Santa Sheep in ZOE'S Lab 3, which I'll get to in a minute, we actually went on a quest to find all the missing gifts, because when the sleigh crashed, all of the gifts went missing and flying all over ZOE'S Lab 2. This took place on Christmas Eve, December 24th, and we had to fly all over ZOE'S Lab 2 to be able to find all the said presents so that Santa Sheep could deliver them on Christmas, or the night of Christmas Eve. Remember how I said earlier these hay maize would eventually turn into ice during this party? I told you I wasn't joking about that. Because as you can see, the maze from that original party came back. And it was super cool. But obviously, it was all ice. As we could see, it was an ice version now, with gifts hiding under it. This was so cool. It revolved us traveling all over the world of ZOE'S Lab 2 to be able to find all the presents. And this was one of the coolest things we had ever done in the Christmas parties. But that was nothing compared to what I'm about to tell you next. Now, this next part actually occurred before before we had to do all those sleigh craft missions and the missing gifts. But I thought I'd save it for last because holy frick, this was so cool. Going as far back as day one, we finally, and I mean finally, got to see the Christmas party of 2015 after 7 years. All of the rooms from the original party were built up from the ground up, and ultimately was one of the greatest things to happen during this party. This was before, of course, discovering the sleigh crash. Seeing these rooms after all these years was awesome, and it was the first time that you guys actually got to see these. I'll admit though, it was super hard trying to get all these rooms from memory. I had to literally remake all these rooms from memory, from the ground up, without any video footage. And you just seriously, to this very day, do not understand how difficult it was. This project took place from December 9th through the 15th. While most of it was done on the 15th, some of it was secretly done behind the scenes from December 9th through the 12th, without any of you knowing, until I revealed it in the video. This was one of the greatest surprises during this party, and now that you know that these rooms actually exist, prepare to see them a lot more in ZOE'S Lab 2 throughout its history. And yeah, now that they exist, you know what the classic ZL2 looked like. And even after the party, I actually showed you what it looked like. And then that's when we found out about the sleigh crash. Those missing gifts actually worked, because all the gifts we found during this party actually counted towards something. The present update. And there were presents everywhere, even 2015 rooms, which never actually had this update prior. So all of those were new at the time. Ultimately, there were presents everywhere during this party. And that's what happened when the missing gifts ended. We ultimately got to open presents as a Christmas gift to celebrate Christmas. Unfortunately, this video was done the day after Christmas, so yeah, it didn't really count, but you get the idea. But ultimately, I forgot to mention, we didn't actually find all the gifts. You see, Evil Cluck actually won. He was actually the one behind the missing gifts, actually. God dang it! Okay, I don't know why I keep clicking that. But yeah, Evil Cluck ultimately won. And, yeah, apparently we missed like 14 of them. It said 10 right there, but then I found more later on. With that being said, that is it for the Christmas Party 2022 for ZOE'S Lab 2. And my god, this was one of our best Christmas parties. Hands down! Seriously, not only was the entire world decorated again, but this had to be one of our greatest Christmas parties of all time. I do not know how we're going to top this in 2023. Also, I'm surprised we were able to make this the official best Christmas party overall after the massive amount of rooms decorated during 2021. We thought that was the best one. In reality, this had to be the greatest one of all time. But of course, we're still forgetting one. This was the free version. Yep. For the first time ever, or at least for the second time, we finally had both of these occur across both labs. This was completely different. There was actually only one mission. Just one. And I'll get to that in a minute. And it actually does revolve around the sleigh crash. But there was no sleigh crash to be found here. Instead, before I jump into that, the ZOE'S Lab 3 Christmas Party 2022. It started on December 18th and ended on January 1st. Although, actually, correction, make that December 18th, 2022 to January 2nd, 2023. It was originally supposed to end on January 1st, 2023. But because I was too focused on the ZOE'S Lab 2 and Lego's Island New Year's parties at the time alongside the backyard, I unfortunately couldn't get it up in time. Ultimately, what was the deal with this party? Well, it was just a traditional Christmas party, except everything was literal ice and lit up at the same time. This was actually a combination of two themes, an ice theme, and most importantly, if we went inside the lab, it was also a Christmas in space theme. That's right. Oh yeah, and donations were available again, like usual. We were donating again. The same thing applied in ZOE'S Lab too, of course. For every 2 to 3 days, we would get a new set of gold in the gold nugget room. Of course, this applied across both labs. With that being said, a Christmas in space theme and an ice theme at the same time, my God, guys, we had a lot going into these two parties. And this all happened in the span of 2.5 weeks. It is truly insane what we can do. As usual, the Railroad donation game, of course, returned as usual for ZOE'S Lab 3. That's tradition. What wasn't tradition was that on Christmas Eve, many hours prior to the missing gifts, we actually had to find the real Santa sheep after we found out that that previous one that we did during the sleigh crash was an evil clone, as we addressed earlier. To find him, we had to find him via an ice castle, hence why the ice theme existed. Ultimately, in order to find him, we had to bundle up and go through the entire ice castle to be able to find the real Santa sheep and ultimately bring him back to ZL2 to do the missing gifts, as we previously addressed. Well, just to do the missing gifts. With that being said, it took forever to get through the castle, but ultimately there was an ice maze, and right after that, we had to go through a powdered snow maze, which was really, really difficult. And this was absolutely insane. Thankfully, it did take a while to get through the powdered snow maze. Ultimately, we did find Santa Sheep in the process, the real one. But oh boy, he was cold as heck after being up there for so long. Ultimately, from what we can gather, he was captured. From what we could gather, story-wise, there was actually a little storyline in here, which dates back to the fact that he was actually captured on December 14th, right before he was heading to ZL2, so he could deliver the presents early. But yeah, he got captured, and an evil clone took in his place and crossed the sleigh, as we could see here. So ultimately, man, we had a lot going on during this party. And with that being said, that is it for every single event in ZOE'S Lab 2 and 3 across 2022. After 2.5 hours of talking about events, it is over. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and oh boy, what a year that was. 2022 had to be one of the greatest years of the lab's history, of ZOE'S Lab history. Holy frick, this may have been even better than 2016, whereas that year was basically all new events and a lot more creativeness. But ultimately, man, a lot can change in 6 years. This might be the new best year of ZOE'S Lab. This might have been the best year of ZOE'S Lab. Seriously. Do you not know what we just talked about for the last 2.5 hours? This had to be one of the most original years ever. And it's crazy to believe that we are done. And I'm actually glad I'm done. I am, not gonna lie to you, kind of tired. But in the meantime, it is 11:33. I am going to upload this. I know for a fact it's not going to be up before midnight, I'll tell you that. But I'll see you all in the next episode. And I know this is not up on Saturday as it's supposed to, because this was supposed to be up on December 31st. But I'll still upload it now anyway. I'll see you all in the next episode on January 14th, where we take a look at, I don't know if it's going to be the Legos Out events or the Backyard events. You guys can suggest that in the comments. See you next time. And who knows how big 2023 is going to be. Probably not as big, but oh boy, Man. Man, that was a wild year.